welcome to this week's video. I just wanted to show you a little bit of how I make my art for putting in my resin works. I use a program called DAZ Studio, and I like how it works because you can basically set up your entire scene however you want and take your kind of render it from whatever view you like best. I spend several hours creating the artwork itself, and thought you would enjoy watching a little bit of that. It's not an actual tutorial on how to use DAZ Studio. It's just showing you a little bit of what I do and how I set up my artwork. Towards the end of this video, it will show you how to prep your artwork to actually go into the resin material. Again, I enjoy making art myself. I thought I'd share a little bit of that with you guys this week. Not going to do a whole lot of talking in this particular video. I just wanted you to see a little bit of that. And when I get down towards the end of the video, I will come back and explain the preparation for it. In the meantime, you can just watch this real quick stuff and then listen to a little bit of nice music while it's going. Be back at the end of the video. Okay, here towards the end of the video we are. I rendered the shots and loaded them up into my other 2D programs to do some final touches on them and set them up size-wise and everything for going into resin. To make sure you get the right sizes you want, make sure you measure your resin molds that you plan to add these to, and be sure to make your images just like a half inch or a quarter inch smaller than the actual mold so that they fit down inside nicely. Because when you get done sizing these and print them up and stuff and trim them down, you are then going to use a laminator to coat them and protect them from the actual resin itself so that they don't bleed or soak up the resin and turn almost translucent. Some printers or some papers are out there where you can buy special paper and actually coat it to have paper that's already specially made to go into resin. Those are a bit expensive, so I decided to go with a little bit cheaper method of just laminating my images. Again, make sure you set up your images so that they can fit just inside. However you measure them, if you use centimeters, make sure you use that in your program when you're resizing. Switch over to centimeters. If you're using inches, make sure you use inches in your resizing on the images. You want to be sure, again, that these are a little bit smaller because once you laminate them, you will leave a very thin, clear edge on the final image, and that will actually end up being the actual size, so they'll come out just a little bit bigger once you're done with the final process. But again, I believe that you should definitely make sure that you measure your molds prior to setting up your images, and whatever 2D program you use, there is always a way to resize your images. But if you're making your own artwork, be sure you kind of set up your ratios so that if like you're doing a perfect square, make it a 1-to-1 ratio. If you're doing a rectangle, make sure your orientation and your rectangles are in accordance with what image you're creating. It makes the images look better in the end, and they don't get stretched or shrinked the wrong way on you and distorted from sizing. So I hope this all helped you. Again, I'm not doing an actual tutorial on how to use the programs themselves. Just wanted to show you basically how my workflow went and what you're basically looking for. When I go to print layout, I use a grid to help me line up my pictures a little better. And I like to make multiple copies so that you can use them in several different art pieces. Here are the printed pieces, and I'm using a paper cutter so I can get nice straight cuts on my paperwork, on my original images. And I do trim a little close to the edge. Might take a little bit of the picture itself off, but it'll be okay. No biggie there. Again, just trim up your images as close as you can to the actual images so that you get this really nice clean edges on it. When I go to doing it later and cutting the clear off, I tend to use on smaller projects I use scissors because paper cutter is a little more of a hassle. I picked up the paper cutter in Walmart, so that was no problem there. The laminator I got at the dollar or at Office Max or Office Depot. They're both pretty much the same now. And the laminating paper sheets I picked up at Walmart also. You can get them in the 50 packs or 100 packs or even just 25. I think laminating the images actually works best. It gives them an extra protection coat than just painting them or coating them with some kind of acrylic. I like the lamination process because it does allow you to trim up nice and close, and the lamination paper blends in perfectly with the resin. You won't even know it's there. Outside of that, again, just trim up your images real nice and trim, and take your time with whatever you're doing. There's no rush in getting yourself set up and stuff. You can always save the extra images for later and print them again and again. Save them on your files so you always have them. Sometimes I print up several copies, laminate them, stick them in a Ziploc baggie to save them for later. Really, there's not much to it other than, just make sure you get a good amount of space around each picture so you can trim them up and don't put them right side by side when you put them in the sleeves. It really isn't that hard to do. Like I said, I prefer this method to some of the others I've seen. When you laminate these images, they do tend to get a little brighter and clearer, it seems like, which I guess the heat makes the ink stand out more or something. I'm not sure how that works, but it really comes out looking really nice pictures this way. So here I am setting it off to the side, and then I will show you. There's the sleeve, and technically I should turn that on when I was doing all the cutting. It probably would have been ready by this point instead of having to wait for it. That green light will come on when it is ready for me to load the sleeve in, and as you can see, I'm pushing right up against the top edge of that, and then making sure there's space between them all around the rest of it. And I try to get as much as I can to a sleeve, because the more you get into one sleeve, the less waste you have. Again, the light's green now, and I'm gonna load in the paper, and you'll just see it come out the other side. As you see it goes in, when it comes out, you'll see it a little bit brighter looking on the colors and richer. And I think that just makes for beautiful pieces to go into the actual resin work. And then you don't lose any of this brightness or anything using this technique. So you get nice, bright, beautiful pictures and wonderful little bits of artwork to put in your resin. And you can do this whether you make your art yourself or just get free pictures off the internet somewhere. Either way you do it, or even photos. If you print your own photos, you will definitely not have any problems with this. And here I decided to go ahead and do another one, and I just cut it out with the scissors instead of doing that, pulling out the paper cutter. So I wanted to have a second big one in case I needed it for something. So generally speaking, I really try not to do just one like that to a whole sheet. I'll cut them all out with scissors because I'm not worried about the straight lines as much on that. I try to get it as close as I can without making them where they're too close. You don't want to cut into where you're actually getting the paper. That's not really good for the images. I do have a couple that I've done that way, and you can kind of see where it bled off the resin bled into the edge of the paper, and it looks like they have water spots in them. But if you can avoid cutting into the paper part of that at all, then I would do so. Try to leave a little clear edge around all of them, and just do your best to picture them, to get them all set up in the way you want. So again, I'll just kind of set that off to the side so I can work the rest of this out. Next week I will show you another mold making. I picked up some silicone mold making stuff. I showed you the silicone caulking and cornstarch method. However, the pourable version of the cheap way of doing it, to me, is not feasible because it takes days, weeks, too long to dry, and it really just doesn't make sense to do that. So in some cases it makes more sense to spend a little bit more money on a pourable version. So that'll be next week's video. I will show you the mold making with the store-bought versions of pourable silicone stuff. Hope you enjoyed and have a wonderful week. Sorry it's a little late this week. Have a good day.